end the suffering of someone you loved who was dying, would you? According to Americans Support Physician-Assisted Suicide for Terminally Ill by Scott Hensley, published December 28, 2012, 55% of 3,017 respondents conducted from a telephone poll were in favor of physician-assisted suicide for people with less than 6 months to live. Medical-assisted suicide is a very serious, yet not often talked about subject which is occurring right this very moment in our very own country. Knowing the problems faced with medical-assisted suicide, understanding what it means and achieving a solution to those problems is all vital to deciding whether or not it should be legalized, given certain situations and while under supervision. We as people living in this country have the right to decide how and when we want to die. We should have the right to end our sorrows and pain in a less brutal and more dignified manner. The problems with medical-assisted suicide is that it is not legal in every state. Legalizing medical-assisted suicide would give every single one of you the ability to avoid pain and suffering. Let's say you are dying from some disease that, despite all attempts, cannot be cured or relieved. Would you not want the freedom to choose whether to end the pain or to elongate the inevitable? In addition, why would we not want to continue in better end-of-life care? Elderly patients don't want to be seen miserable, incoherent, and weak in their final last moments. They want to be remembered as strong, vibrant, healthy, and happy. Why should death have to be so brutal and often violent? For those contemplating suicide, it would be much less devastating for friends and family if their suffering could end more peacefully. On the other hand, some may argue that assisted suicide is not the best option. According to Top 10 Pros and Cons, published December 13, 2013, some feel that assisted suicide could lead to possible abuse and even murder. Because a doctor is not required to be present during the procedure, nor required to administer the drug to the patient, it is very easy for anyone to give the drug to, for example, a weak, ill patient who cannot fight off an offender, who may be an heir to money or other things. Furthermore, for some it is simply against their morals or religious beliefs. It is feared that patients and doctors may give up on recovery quicker, especially for those who end up outliving their illnesses. The elderly or other patients often feel they are a burden to their family and may be more inclined to assisted suicide. Some would argue that the Hippocratic Oath would be broken. According to the Hippocratic Oath Today by Peter Tyson, published March 27, 2001, the Hippocratic Oath, simply put, is a code of ethics followed by all doctors, which includes some of the following, such as treating to the best of one's ability, patient confidentiality, and etc. I believe we have the right to decide before we die what to do if we are dying or if we are terminally ill. While all the pros and cons suggested make valid points, we cannot even begin to choose sides without fully understanding the meaning of medical-assisted suicide. According to Should a Physician-Assisted Suicide Be Legal, published September 11, 2013, by Bahar Golapur, in Physician-Assisted Suicide, doctors provide terminally ill patients with the means to end their own life. For example, giving them a prescription for a lethal dose of medication, which the patient can later decide whether to take. Initially, the state of Oregon legalized it and also put into effect the Death with Dignity Act of 1997. According to Death with Dignity, the laws and how to assess them, published in 2012, this law allows mentally competent, terminally ill adults to demand and receive a prescription to quicken their oncoming death. A patient must be 18 years or older, a resident of the state of Oregon, Washington, or Vermont, and be able to make and communicate their own health care choices while also having a deadly illness that will kill them in 6 months or less. A patient must be able to make 2 verbal requests and also 1 written request for the medication. They must be able to self-administer that medication to themselves, and the doctor must also suggest other options for pain relief to that patient before giving them the medication. According to Americans Support Physician-Assisted Suicide for Terminally Ill by Scott Hensley, published December 28, 2012. Dr. Marcia Angel, previous editor of New England Journal of Medicine, believes dying patients should have a legal right to end their own lives. Marcia's father was driven to kill himself due to the pain from his prostate cancer. She stated that physician-assisted suicide isn't a choice between life and death. It is a choice between the exact timing and manner of death, because these patients are dying. After understanding the meaning of medical-assisted suicide, a plan can now be constructed to relieve and resolve the issue at present. According to Before I Die, published in 2014, Michael H. White, ND physician, believes physician-assisted suicide should be a lawful medical procedure for competent terminally ill adults because it is a compassionate response to relieving the suffering of dying patients. Through a survey I conducted April 29, 2014, using Facebook, email, and in-person questionnaire, I received the following statistics. 76% of respondents said there should be certain situation requirements to qualify for medical-assisted suicide. 24% of those disagreed. 88% of those same respondents had heard of medical-assisted suicide, while only 12% have never heard of it. I believe medical-assisted suicide should be legalized in every state, but with regulations. The patient must be mentally stable and able to complete decision-making processes. They must be given permission only after all treatments were attempted and failed to relieve the terminal illness. The patient must request the medication, and their physician must review the case before prescribing. In addition, the patient must be able to self-administer at their time of choice, and I believe the physician must be present as well. Last, the proceedings must be in writing to diminish possible abuse. To conclude, medical-assisted suicide is a very serious, yet rarely discussed subject which is occurring legally in some states. Knowing the problems faced with medical-assisted suicide, understanding exactly what it means, and achieving a solution is all vital to making a life-changing decision. As you know, medical-assisted suicide is widely unaccepted, but does provide a comforting alternative for those suffering to be at peace in a controlled, dignified manner.